welcome to the third in the series of videos in installing Filr. In this one we're going to cover how to configure LDAP against eDirectories, so to get your users and allow them to authenticate against eDirectory. My name's Robin Redgrave. I'm a solutions consultant based out of the UK. So let's just log in as the administrative user. And remember, we reset the password in the last video for that user. If you haven't reset the password, then it will be the same as what you've called your administrator there. To get to the administration console, we just take the drop down in the top right and select Administration Console. And then to get to the LDAP settings, they're down towards the bottom of the list on the left-hand side. So let's just go through some of the options before we set things up. So in user settings, typically you'd want to have those two checkboxes set. And then depending as to whether you want to disable or delete accounts, you can select the option there. So this depends on if an account that previously was synchronized from LDAP and has now disappeared from eDirectory, then do you keep that account but in a disabled state, or do you actually delete the account and possibly all their home workspace and so on? Then we've got the time zone. So in this instance, I'm in London, so I'm just going to select London there and the default locale. Then if we go on to group settings, we've got various settings very similar to what we had before. Typically I select the option to delete groups once that they no longer exist in eDirectory if they originally came from eDirectory. We then have the synchronization schedule. So typically I most probably would run this once a day or so. I know some customers run it more frequently than that, but that may add a load to the server depending on how big your LDAP directory is and indeed how fast it is to respond. So I'll set that to run just after midnight. And then the local user accounts, let us specify that we can have users that are only on the appliance and don't actually have to have been in eDirectory or another LDAP source. Typically, I'll leave that as checked because it won't make much difference. But if you're sure you're not going to have any local user accounts, you can disable that. So let's just go back to the first option there, which is LDAP servers. And I'm just going to add a new source. So that's going to be LDAP : / in this case oes.mydemo.biz, which is my OES server in this instance that's got my eDirectory on, and I typically put the port on the end of that just as they've got in the example above. In this instance I'm just doing plain LDAP. In a production system I most probably would want to do LDAP S, so a secure LDAP. To do that I'd need to import the appropriate certificates into the Java certificate store, which we saw earlier on in the previous video. Next I need to put in my user DN. So here I think I've got a user called Filr proxy, which is in a container called system. There, put in the password. Directory type is going to be eDirectory, so just leave that at the default and leave the other settings at the default. Then come on to users, and this allows us to specify which users to actually import. So I'm going to add and then select container. And indeed, this is the first time you know if the settings you put on the previous page are actually correct. So I'm just going to select this container called Utopia. And at the moment, that filter is that everyone, every user object in that container is going to be synchronized. What typically I prefer to do is just bring in users that are members of a particular group. So in this instance, let's put in a filter to do that. So here I'm just going to get rid of that and replace that with a filter, group membership equals. And in this case, I've got a group called Filr users, which is in this container, and we're just going to bring in those users. And I'll specify that I want to search the subtree. Then down here, typically, if you've got the home directory attribute set in eDirectory, then you need to use the LDAP home directory attribute. There's some other options here if you don't have that, but I won't cover that in this instance. Click OK to that, and then bring in the groups as well that you want to bring in. So typically you'd want to bring in all the groups that you have used to set file rights on the file system. And more often than not, that means all your groups because you don't know which have been used. The reason for this is that Filr can see that a group has rights to the file system, but it needs to know which users are members of that group to give them rights. If I just click OK on that, and then OK on that. Now we're just going to do a synchronize all, and that should hopefully bring across everything. I'm just going to save the configuration before we do that. And there we go. I can see we've got some groups coming across and indeed some users as well. And wait for that to finish. And I can just say close, and that's it done. Let's just go and check that I do have some users in there. Up at the top option is users, and I can see I've got some users there. Let me just log out, and we'll just try logging in as one of those users. So here I'll just log in as me. And there we go. I can log in as that user. The next video will go through how to set up your network storage to be exposed to your users. If you're more interested in finding out more about LDAP and Filr, then there is a video up on YouTube that I've done that you can find and goes through in a lot more depth of how to use LDAP with Filr. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this video useful.